Chapter 7. Treasures in a Trunk. Teresa Callahan had swept the storeroom, wiped off the tops of the trunks and boxes, and let the cleaning go at that. Penny carried several old newspapers with her to spread on the floor or the trunks, though they wore nothing that would spoil for a little dirt, Marjorie reminded her. But Penny warned her that they needed to take care of what clothes they had brought with them until the trunks arrived. "Oh, Penny, see! This first trunk over here isn't locked." "That's peculiar." "It's an old-fashioned lock. See, what a queer key," added Marjorie, spying the key on the floor and picking it up. "Do you suppose that Teresa or Anne Mary or anybody opened it?" "They wouldn't. Even if they were that kind, they would know that we'd find the trunk unlocked and miss anything. No, we couldn't miss anything, could we? Not having the least idea of what we'd find." Rather gingerly, Marjorie herself lifted the top of the trunk as if, Penny said, she expected something to jump out and bite her. "Nothing of the sort," said Marjorie. "But I do kind of hate to pry into other people's things. They're ours now, remember." The trunk lid swung back and stood open stoutly on its strong hinges. Neat pasteboard covers with pictured faces on them were revealed. 2, fastened with neat gilt buttons or hasps, closed their compartments in the rounded top. 2 more lay on top of the first or upper tray and bulged with the contents of their compartments. Fascinated, Marjorie unfastened the compartment that stood opposite her, and a velvet bag fell out. "Shoes, slippers, satin ones, velvet ones!" she cried. She emptied the bag on the nearest newspaper. One pair of small white satin slippers was wrapped separately in tissue paper. The paper had been dislodged from the other 2 pairs, one of black velvet, the other of green satin. "Wow!" cried Marjorie. "Here are the shoes that go with the green silk dress of the Baroness. It must be her trunk." Penny said nothing. If Marjorie had energy enough to unpack the trunk, let her go ahead. "We'll find the green silk dress next. One thing, Penny, if it's in here, the ghost can't be wearing it. Still, she could take it off, I suppose, and put it back." "Silly," laughed Penny, seeing that Marjorie was merely having fun. The green silk dress was not in the hat box, which formed the right-hand compartment of the upper tray. Marjorie tried on a close-fitting black velvet cap, then a very wobbly large hat of some thin straw, lace, and artificial flowers. Penny thought that it dated farther back than the Baroness. "I do think, Marge, that this could not ever have belonged to any Allen," she said, when Marjorie opened the left-hand compartment and found a jumble of various things, boxed and otherwise. Marjorie went over to where a long, cracked mirror stood propped against the wall. She thrust her arms into the openings of a sleeveless Eton jacket, gorgeously embroidered, drew on a long pair of white kid gloves, arranged the floppy hat back on her head, and viewed herself with satisfaction as well as with amusement. She took a few steps in front of the glass in order to see herself from every angle, and then, laughing merrily, she returned to the trunk to replace the floppy hat and take off the jacket. Little things in boxes absorbed her next. Penny, who had drawn up an old chair, was interested too. Several boxes were interesting in themselves. "Why, they're beautiful!" cried Penny. "And those 2 are inlaid. I can't imagine anyone's deliberately leaving them." "Perhaps they had so much else that these didn't matter," Marjorie suggested, and Penny agreed that it was possible. Within the larger box of the 2 the girls especially admired were smaller boxes containing beads, a few coins, buckles, and one short string of amber. Marjorie fastened it around her neck and ran to the mirror again. "I'm terribly selfish, but I wish they belonged to me," she said. "So far as I'm concerned, you can have them," Penny assured her promptly. "Ask the present head of the family and mighty owner of the estate if he has any objection." An amethyst pendant, a curious crystal ornament, an ornate silver buckle, and a pair of garnet earrings next interested the girls. There was also an embroidered silk shawl, faded and marred by brown spots, several once bright scarves, and a yellowed, though handsomely embroidered tablecloth. These filled the compartment, together with some silk stockings tucked around the edges. "Here, Penny, are the green silk stockings. See how they are embroidered? Are they older than the Baroness, then?" "I think so." Marjorie reached down and tucked the green silk stockings into the green slippers. "Now for the green silk dress," said she. The upper tray Penny helped lift out. Another was below this, yellowed tissue paper on top. "Look!" cried Marjorie. "The wedding dress and veil!" There was no doubt about this. The exquisite veil was folded with tissue paper to preserve it, and was of handmade lace, rose point, Penny thought. Under this, folds of heavy white satin, also creamy with age and not free from discoloration, lay carefully arranged. "Penny, I can't imagine why this was left behind. Wouldn't you think that somebody would care, at least about the veil, if it was a family one?" Penny shook her head. "I can't imagine either, Marjorie. There must have been something about it. Maybe everybody who cared was dead, and you can see that these things are pretty old. Perhaps the bride wasn't happy anyway." "That might be," said Marjorie, seizing upon the idea. "Let's just lift out the tray and not disturb it at all." With great respect for the wedding dress, the tray was lifted out and set on another trunk close by. And now they had come to the main part of the large trunk. "Look, Penny, here's a lot of tissue paper all empty right on top. Something's been taken out of it after the trunk was packed. I suspect they decided to take something else. I'm afraid it was the green dress." "Crazy Marjorie," laughed Penny again. "Yes, you are right about that nest of papers having had its contents taken out, but I'm sure we'll never miss it." "We'll miss it if it is the green dress that the ghost dressed up in." "See here, Marjorie, you're joking too much about that. Suppose you think about something else for a change." Penny wanted to forget about her experience that first night, about which she had said nothing to the others. "Don't get cross, Penny. I suppose you are a little tired of it. I'll stop, even if I do think about it." "Impossible, child," cried Penny, more than half annoyed. "Do see what is under that paper. I hope you do find the green dress. Then maybe I'll have some peace." To this Marjorie made no reply. She knew when to stop. Penny was a sweet sister, but once in a while she came to the limit, and Penny was tired today. Immediately under the vacant mass of papers lay in soft folds a rich black velvet dress. Marjorie glanced at the black slippers and said, rather timidly, "Here's the court dress you said I'd find." Penny, ashamed of her crossness, responded at once, touching the rich folds. "It was once a lovely thing, Margie. I think you can dress up in this, unless we find some direction to leave the trunk's contents alone." One pretty dress after another came to light. They also found some odd pieces of embroidery and a flat box of fine linens on the very bottom. "But we didn't find the diamond tiara, Penny. It might be in with the wedding dress, though. Shall we look?" "Not now. Let's shut this up for the present and open some of the other trunks. How about it?" Marjorie, ready for something new, agreed at once. "We'll lock this up this time, Penny, and put the key on one of the rings, yours or Phil's. We have duplicates of most of our keys, haven't we?" "Yes, Marjorie. It is odd that a trunk like this should have been left unlocked." They next opened a large box, which proved to be full of pictures packed in their frames. They were a little curious about them, but decided it was too much trouble for the present to take them out, only to put them back again. Anne Mary had mentioned that the greater part of the rooms had been dismantled some years ago. Marjorie suggested that there might be a picture of the Baroness there. 2 large cedar chests promised much, but in one were only blankets, soft and fine. In the other was a great assortment of such covers, centerpieces, and special selections of linen as would have delighted any housekeeper. Penny exclaimed over these, and said that their supplies for next summer's hotel were complete. These were the extras which could be added to what the drawers and cupboards downstairs had already disclosed. Marjorie admired, but she was more thrilled over the first trunk, from which she had a load of boxes, beads, and ornaments to take with her. Nor had she forgotten the green slippers, though she did not mention to Penny that she had wrapped them up. Penny was so silly about her interest in the green lady. Odd boxes and a suitcase or 2 did not contain anything of interest. There was a great supply of fishing tackle that the boys would be glad to have later, they thought. Their own was sufficient for the present. By this time it was noon, and Penny looked at her watch and said that she was as hungry as a bear and intended to go get something to eat. "I'm the other bear, Penny, as hungry as you are." Marjorie could scarcely wait to show Philip her treasures when the boys returned in the afternoon. She told him excitedly about the trunk and its contents, and he could see for himself the pretty amber beads. "I'd like to keep them, if you don't mind, Phil." "I mind? Ask Penny." "She doesn't want them, but you own everything here." "Much I do. Keep your beads. How about the woods, Penny? Want to go?" "No, Phil. You boys have been out all morning. Suppose we take tomorrow for our trip, with a picnic lunch. Unless you want to go now." "I've been back far enough into the woods to see what it's like. And I want to go into the desk to see what I can find about Uncle John's last being up here, if there's any more light on affairs, you understand." But Philip's search that afternoon revealed only a batch of unanswered mail that he felt he should answer. End of chapter 7.